You know that moment when something inside you screams louder than the excuses, louder than the doubts, louder than the fear? That's the moment you decide your life will never be the same again. Massive action isn't about waiting until you feel ready. It's about creating the energy, the drive, the fire inside you that makes you unstoppable. Because let's be honest, if you wait for perfect timing, you'll wait your entire life. Most people live in hesitation in the land of someday. But someday is poison. Someday kills dreams. You've got to draw a line in the sand and say, from this moment, I'm no longer dabbling. I'm no longer testing the water. I'm diving in with everything I've got. The truth is, clarity comes from action, not from thinking. You don't sit around waiting for confidence. You build confidence by taking the step, by failing forward, by learning, by adapting, by refusing to quit. Every massive breakthrough you've ever admired in someone else came because they stopped negotiating with their limitations. They stopped listening to the little voice that said, what if I fail? And replaced it with, what if I never try? What if I never live the life I was born for? Your brain is a powerful machine, but it's wired for survival, not greatness. So it's going to whisper fear into your ear. It's going to tell you to stay safe, to play small, to hold back. But massive action demands you override that old programming. You've got to condition yourself daily to step into the unknown with certainty, with energy, with the belief that the universe rewards boldness. Imagine the version of you 5 years from now who never stopped, who never hesitated, who made the decision today to go all in. That version of you has a fire in their eyes, a strength in their spirit, a story of victories and lessons that only came because you dared. Don't rob yourself of that future by standing still. Decide now, commit now, act now, burn the boats, cut off the exit strategy, and tell yourself, this is who I am, this is where I'm going, and nothing is going to stop me. Because when you take massive action and refuse to look back, life bends in your direction, opportunities chase you down, and you finally experience the power of living fully alive. You know that moment when something inside you screams louder than the excuses, louder than the doubts, louder than the fear. That's the moment you decide your life will never be the same again. And here's the truth. Most people ignore that voice. They hear it, they feel it, but they bury it under comfort, under distraction, under the illusion of safety. That's why so few people live extraordinary lives. Massive action isn't about dipping your toes into the water. It's about saying, I'm done testing. I'm done waiting. I'm diving in, because nothing changes until you put your entire being on the line. Nothing changes until you burn the boats, until you eliminate retreat as an option. That's what creates transformation. Most people live in hesitation in the land of someday I'll get in shape. Someday I'll start that business. Someday I'll fix my relationships. But let me tell you something, someday doesn't exist. It's a lie. It's poison. It's a trap designed to keep you stuck exactly where you are. The only time you have is now. The only time you can take control is this very second. Think about it. How many opportunities have already passed you by because you were waiting for the perfect moment? How many times have you thought, I'll start when I feel ready? And where has that gotten you? You don't need perfect timing. You don't need permission. You don't need to know every step of the path. What you need is the courage to move, to decide, to step into the unknown with everything you've got. The truth is, clarity doesn't come from thinking. It comes from doing. You don't sit in your room visualizing confidence and suddenly wake up fearless. No, confidence is built by action, by moving, by doing the thing you're afraid of, by failing forward, learning, adjusting, and refusing to quit. Every single person you admire, every giant in business, sports, art, or leadership, they didn't start with confidence. They started with action. Your brain is wired for survival, not success. That means it will always whisper fear into your ear. It will tell you to stay safe, to stay comfortable, to stay small. That voice will never go away. But here's the secret. You don't silence it by waiting. You silence it by proving it wrong through action. You override the old programming by conditioning yourself to act, even when it's uncomfortable, even when it's uncertain, even when it's terrifying. Massive action isn't about motivation. Motivation is temporary. It's about commitment. It's about deciding that you will not stop no matter how you feel. It's about training your nervous system to move before the excuses take root. It's about making action your identity. Imagine a rocket ship sitting on the launch pad. Do you know how much fuel it takes just to lift off? Just to break the pull of gravity? Almost all of it. But once it's in motion, once it's out of the atmosphere, momentum takes over. That's you. The hardest part is starting. The hardest part is deciding. The hardest part is taking that first massive step. But once you do, once you commit fully, momentum begins to work for you. Energy compounds. Results compound. Opportunities appear. People are drawn to your fire. That's the power of massive action. And let's talk about the alternative, because if you don't take massive action, if you don't decide to go all in, what happens? You stagnate. You repeat the same year over and over again and call it a life. You settle for mediocrity, for just enough, for surviving instead of thriving. And deep down, that eats at you. You can lie to the world, but you can't lie to yourself. You know, when you're playing small, you know, when you're not living at your true potential, that quiet suffering, that's the price of hesitation. So ask yourself right now, what are you tolerating? What story are you telling yourself about why you can't, why it's not the right time, why you're not ready, and what's it costing you? Not in the future, not in 5 years, right now. What's the cost of inaction today? Because every day you hesitate, every day you delay, you strengthen the chains that hold you back. You've got to decide right here, right now, that you are done with hesitation, that you are done with waiting for the perfect moment, that you are done with living a life less than the one you're capable of. You've got to make a declaration. I will act. I will commit. I will do whatever it takes. I will not look back. And let me tell you, when you commit at that level, something powerful happens. The universe bends in your direction. Doors open that you never saw before. People appear in your life that you never expected. Resources, opportunities, and breakthroughs begin to flow to you. Why? Because energy attracts energy. When you show up with certainty, with intensity, with unstoppable drive, the world can't ignore you. But you've got to own it. Half-hearted action doesn't create results. Dabbling doesn't change lives. If you plant a seed and then dig it up every week to check on it, it's never going to grow. You've got to commit to the process. You've got to water it daily, nurture it, protect it, and trust that growth is happening even when you can't see it. That's massive action. It's consistency with intensity. And don't tell me you don't have the time. Don't tell me you don't have the energy. Don't tell me you don't have the resources. Because the truth is, it's never about resources. It's about resourcefulness. People with less than you have built empires. People with harder circumstances have transformed their lives. The difference isn't circumstance, it's hunger. It's the decision to act no matter what. Think about Thomas Edison, thousands of failed attempts before he created the light bulb. Think about Walt Disney, fired from a newspaper because they said he lacked imagination. Think about Oprah, rejected, told she wasn't fit for television. What did they all have in common? They refused to stop. They refused to accept failure as final. They took massive action again and again and again until the world had no choice but to recognize them. So ask yourself, what's your light bulb? What's your Disney? What's your empire? And what's the price you're willing to pay to bring it to life? Because if you're not willing to go all in, if you're not willing to take massive action, then you've already decided to settle. And settling is the slow death of the soul. I want you to feel this in your gut right now. Close your eyes for a second and imagine yourself 5 years from today. Imagine you did nothing. Imagine you stayed exactly where you are. Imagine you let fear, doubt, and hesitation run your life. See that version of yourself. See the frustration, the regret, the weight of wasted time. Feel it. Let it burn. Now, shake that off and imagine the other path. Imagine that today you decide. Today, you draw the line. Today, you commit to massive action. Imagine 5 years from now, you're stronger, wealthier, happier, more fulfilled than you ever dreamed. You've built the business. You've created the body. You've deepened the relationships. You've unleashed the real you. Feel the pride, the energy, the power in that vision. That's what's at stake. The gap between those two futures is not luck. It's not fate. It's not what happens to you. It's what you decide. It's what you do. It's whether or not you take massive action starting now. So what do? You make a decision. You set a standard. You raise your expectations. You say, never again will I settle. Never again will I let fear dictate my choices. Never again will I wait for permission to live the life I was born for. And then you act. Not tomorrow. Not next week. Not when the stars align. Now, you want to change your body. Don't wait for the perfect program. Drop to the floor right now and do push-ups. You want to start a business. Don't wait until you have the whole plan. Pick up the phone, make the call, take the first step. You want to fix your relationship. Don't wait for the other person. Show up with love, with honesty, with vulnerability today. Because here's the truth. Small actions create momentum, and momentum fuels massive results. It's like a snowball rolling down a hill. Once it starts, it grows, it accelerates, it becomes unstoppable. But none of that happens until you push it, until you take that first step, until you act, no matter how imperfectly. And here's the final thing. You never look back. Once you decide, once you commit, you move forward with everything you have. You don't keep one foot in the past. You don't keep glancing over your shoulder. You cut off retreat. You burn the boats. You tell yourself, this is it. This is who I am now. This is where I'm going, and nothing is going to stop me. You see, the problem isn't that people don't know what to do. Deep down, you know exactly what to do. If I locked you in a room and said, you don't leave until you write down 10 actions that could change your life, you'd fill that paper. You'd write faster than you've ever written before. The issue isn't knowledge, it's execution. It's taking those ideas and flooding them with energy, urgency, and intensity until they become reality. Knowledge without action is wasted potential. Think about it. We live in a time where you can Google anything. You can learn business strategy from billionaires for free. You can watch workouts online from world-class trainers. You can learn about relationships, psychology, spirituality, finance. It's all there, instantly available. Yet people are still stuck. Why? Because they're addicted to learning but allergic to doing. They think the next book, the next course, the next seminar will change their life. But none of that matters unless you take massive action on what you already know. There's a principle I want you to feel in your bones: progress equals happiness. If you're not growing, you're dying. And the only way to grow is through action. You can think, you can plan, you can dream, but nothing changes until you move, until you create motion, until you make a decision and follow it with massive execution. Now, let's talk about fear, because fear is the number one thing that holds people back from action. People think fear is the enemy, but it's not. Fear is a compass. Fear is a signal. Fear points directly at the thing you need to do. If you're afraid of public speaking, guess what? That's the exact skill that will open doors for you. If you're afraid of investing, guess what? That's the muscle you need to build for financial freedom. If you're afraid of rejection, that's the very challenge that will make you magnetic in relationships and business. Fear is not a wall, it's a doorway. But here's the problem. Most people worship their fear. They give it power. They make it a god in their life. They let fear dictate every choice, every step, every possibility. They treat fear as a stop sign when it should be a green light. The truth is, the quality of your life comes down to the number of fears you're willing to face. The more fear you conquer, the bigger your life becomes. So how do you beat fear? You don't wait for it to disappear. You act in spite of it. You train yourself to feel the fear and move anyway. You condition your nervous system so that fear is no longer a command. It's just background noise. And here's what happens when you face fear enough times. When you take enough massive action, your brain rewires. What once felt terrifying becomes normal. What once felt impossible becomes easy. That's the power of immersion through action. Now, I want to shift gears and talk about standards, because massive action flows from standards. Every one of us in this room, every one of us listening right now, lives in alignment with our standards, not our desires. You don't get what you want, you get what you must have. If your standard is, I want to be fit, you'll dabble. But if your standard is, I will never accept a body that doesn't radiate energy and power, you'll move differently. You'll eat differently. You'll train differently. If your standard is, I want to make more money, you'll dabble. But if your standard is, I will never accept struggling financially again, you'll find a way. You'll innovate, you'll hustle, you'll build, you'll demand more from yourself. Raise your standards and your actions change. Raise your standards and your identity changes. Because massive action comes naturally when something is non-negotiable, when there is no plan B, when failure is simply not an option you entertain. Let me tell you a story. Years ago, a man came to me after one of my events. He was overweight, unhappy, struggling in his marriage, and broke. He had read books, taken courses, made vision boards, but nothing was changing. I asked him one question: what's your standard? He said, well, I want to be healthy, I want to be successful, I want to be happy. I stopped him right there. One is weak, one is cheap. What's your standard? He looked at me confused. So I pressed, at what point will you say, enough is enough? At what point will you refuse to tolerate anything less than greatness in your life? That question lit him up. He realized he had been tolerating mediocrity. He had been living in the gray zone of wanting without demanding. He made the decision right then to raise his standards. He committed to massive action. He lost over 100 pounds. He rebuilt his marriage. He started a business. And it wasn't because he suddenly got smarter. It was because he shifted his identity. He stopped dabbling and started living in alignment with a new standard. And that's what you've got to do. You've got to raise your standards so high that massive action becomes your default. Not because it's easy, not because it's comfortable, but because anything less is unacceptable. Now, let's talk about momentum. Momentum is the hidden force that makes massive action unstoppable. Think about a train. Sitting still, it can be blocked by a single brick, but moving at 60 miles per hour, it can smash through a wall. That's you. When you're stagnant, the smallest excuse stops you. I'm tired. I don't have time. I don't feel like it. But once you create momentum through consistent action, nothing can stop you. The very obstacles that once felt overwhelming become laughable. So how do you create momentum? You start small, but you do it daily, and you do it with intensity. You stack wins, you build rituals, you train your nervous system to act automatically. If you want energy, you don't wait to feel good. You move your body, you change your state, you unleash the energy now. If you want financial breakthroughs, you don't wait for the big idea. You make calls, you create, you test, you sell, you learn, you keep moving. Small actions compound. Daily disciplines create massive breakthroughs. And here's another truth. Massive action requires hunger. Hunger is the ultimate driver. People ask me all the time, Tony, how do I stay motivated? And I tell them motivation is weak. Motivation comes and goes. Hunger is eternal. Hunger is a state of being. Hunger comes from deciding that nothing less than greatness will satisfy you. Hunger is the fuel that keeps you going when you're tired, when you're scared, when you've failed 100 times. Hunger is the fire that refuses to go out. If you're not hungry, you'll settle. If you're not hungry, you'll quit when it gets hard. If you're not hungry, you'll let your dreams slip through your fingers. So how do you get hungry? You feed your mind with vision. You surround yourself with people who stretch you, who challenge you, who demand more from you. You remind yourself daily of what's at stake if you don't act. You condition yourself to want more, to expect more, to demand more. And I'll tell you this, hunger is contagious. When you live with hunger, you ignite people around you. You become a force that pulls others into action. You become a leader, not because you want to be, but because your fire inspires others to light their own. So let me ask you, what would your life look like if you took massive action every single day for the next year? What if you stopped negotiating with your excuses? What if you stopped hesitating and started executing? What if you made hunger your identity, momentum your ally, and standards your foundation? Because that's what's available to you right now, not tomorrow, not someday. Now, the only question is, will you decide, will you commit, will you take massive action and never look back? Here's the thing life doesn't reward almost. Life doesn't reward the person who almost went for it, who almost committed, who almost took the leap. History doesn't remember the people who were about to do something. It remembers the ones who did it, the ones who acted, the ones who risked failure, embarrassment, loss, because they knew the price of inaction was greater than the price of failure. Failure is temporary. Regret is permanent. Failure teaches you. Regret haunts you. Failure sharpens your skills. Regret eats away at your soul. Which one do you want to live with? When you take massive action, failure stops being the enemy. It becomes feedback. It becomes the raw material for growth. You don't fail, you refine, you adapt, you strengthen. Every action, every attempt, every push forward makes you sharper, wiser, tougher. You become someone who cannot be broken. Think about the people you admire most, the athletes, the entrepreneurs, the artists, the leaders. Do you think they got there without setbacks? No, they failed more times than most people even tried. That's the difference. The masses stop when it gets hard. The greats double down. The masses run from discomfort. The greats live in it. The masses wait for certainty. The greats create certainty through action. So let me ask you, how many times are you willing to get back up? How many times are you willing to push through rejection, setbacks, and obstacles? Because if the answer is as many as it takes, then you're unstoppable. And let's be real, your future, your family, your legacy, they're all watching the choices you make right now. Generations to come will either inherit your excuses or your breakthroughs. Think about that. The decisions you make today ripple out into the lives of people you may never meet. That's the power of action. That's the weight of responsibility. And don't misunderstand, massive action doesn't mean chaos. It doesn't mean throwing energy at everything without direction. It means focused, intentional, relentless execution on what matters most. It means cutting off the distractions, saying no to the noise, and channeling your energy like a laser, because scattered energy produces scattered results. Focused energy produces breakthroughs. So what do you need to cut out? What distractions are stealing your future? What habits are draining your energy, numbing your drive, weakening your hunger? Be ruthless. Eliminate them. Replace them with rituals that build you, fuel you, sharpen you. Because your rituals shape your results. If your ritual is scrolling through your phone for an hour every morning, you're programming yourself for distraction. If your ritual is hitting snooze 5 times, you're programming yourself for hesitation. If your ritual is avoiding hard conversations, you're programming yourself for weakness. But if your ritual is moving your body, feeding your mind, setting intentions, and acting immediately, you're programming yourself for power. Massive action isn't a one-time event. It's a lifestyle. It's an identity. It's a muscle you build every day until it becomes who you are. And once it becomes who you are, you don't have to push yourself. You pull yourself. Action becomes automatic. Forward motion becomes natural. Momentum becomes unstoppable. And that's the point when you align your identity with action. You no longer have to fight to do the things that used to scare you. You are the kind of person who does them. You are the kind of person who acts boldly, who decides quickly, who executes relentlessly. And once that becomes your identity, your future is inevitable. So right now, in this moment, decide who you are. Decide what standard you will accept. Decide how hungry you're willing to be. Decide what rituals you will live by. Decide that hesitation is death and action is life. Decide that the only path is forward and you will never, ever look back, and now it's in your hands. You've heard the truth. You felt the fire. There's no going back to who you were before this moment unless you choose to. You can walk out of here and let fear, hesitation, and excuses own you, or you can draw the line and declare, this is my time, this is my life, this is my moment to rise. Because life is short, and every day you hesitate is a day you'll never get back. Don't waste another second living below your potential. Stand up, claim your power, and move with the kind of massive action that makes the world take notice. The world doesn't need another dreamer. The world needs a door. Be that person. Take the leap. Burn the boats. Refuse to look back. Because when you commit fully, when you act relentlessly, when you live with unshakable certainty, your life will become a masterpiece, and you will finally know what it feels like to be fully alive